Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second annual Women in Ocean Impact webinar. It's noon right now, and we're going to get started in just a moment, and we'll wrap up by 1:30 p.m. As you're joining, please go ahead and share your name and where you're joining us from in the chat box. And also let us know which fish face best reflects how you're feeling at the moment. Just as a side note, Sally Bartell, who's a phenomenal ocean and nature photographer and dear friend of mine, and who's also on our Sea Forward Grants Committee, took these amazing photos. I personally feel connected to fish number 5 right now. That kind of captures how I feel. I'm being pretty excited about having all of you join us and getting started with this webinar today. My name is Laura Francis, Director of Sea Forward Fund, and I will be today's host. In the lead up to World Ocean Day, which is on June 8th, we're very excited for an empowering conversation centered around hope, inspiration, and action for our blue planet. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll do a deep dive into the blue economy and impact investing for our ocean and discuss solutions and actions that we can all take to support ocean health. And I am absolutely thrilled to be here with 3 amazing women. Dr. Catherine Jadot, environmental scientist and CEO of Elemental Solutions, and author of an upcoming book focused on climate solutions. Ellie Rose, Director of Ocean Strategy at the Milber Foundation, and Michelle Lee, who founded Clever Carbon and Women in Climate. And I think we can all recognize that there are a lot of environmental challenges right now, and sometimes it can feel really overwhelming. And that's why it's even more important to focus this time we have together on what's lighting the way. And we really want this webinar to be a source of hope and optimism and a chance to get to know each other and build community around the things we can do together to support our blue planet. We've got a very diverse group of participants joining us today with 280 registrations from 38 countries, 133 cities around the world. We have people, everyone from students to investors to educators to scientists. And if you haven't had a chance to put it in the chat, go ahead and put your name and where you're from. We'd love to know who's here today. I also really want to thank my small but mighty team, Jaden Gill, Danielle Turner, and Nicole Wald for helping organize and support today's event. So just a couple of housekeeping notes before we begin. The webinar is being recorded and we'll share it with you in a few days, along with some additional resources. And please add your questions, comments, and inspirations into the chat box. Given some of the challenges our planet and ocean are facing, it's even more important right now that we really use and flex our hope muscles. We want this to be a positive and interactive conversation, and we ask that everyone please keep the conversation in the chat kind and respectful of others. We're intentionally in a meeting format rather than a webinar format so that we can connect and interact more with each other. So please keep your video on if you can, especially during the breakout rooms. So we will have some small breakouts, and hopefully you'll meet new people and make some new connections. There'll be 2 different networking sessions, so make sure to stick around until the end if you'd like to connect with more people in the ocean impact space. And so we'd love to hear from you about some of the reasons you're inspired to get involved and support ocean health. So if you can answer the poll question, we'll take a look at the results in just a minute. All right, so a lot of people, purpose, responsibility, that was my answer, but also personal connection. And then knowledge science comes in too. Thank you so much for letting us know. And let's see. Since our theme today is about ocean impact, I'd really like to zoom in and reflect on the case, or zoom out and reflect on the case for investing in our ocean. Our ocean is so vital to life, the economy, and our future, but it is facing a major funding gap that puts our planet's life support system at risk. The ocean covers 70% of the planet and makes up 90% of our biosphere, plays a crucial role in regulating climate and weather, and provides half of the oxygen that we breathe. The global blue economy is valued at over $24 trillion. Our ocean also powers global trade and provides food, medicine, recreation for millions of people, touching every part of our lives. I would say that every person on this planet is somehow connected to the ocean, and a healthy ocean is important to us all. There's an estimated 175 billion US dollars needed each year to support a regenerative blue economy, and yet only 25 billion is currently being mobilized. To protect this really incredible resource, we need to increase our investment at least by sevenfold. And so in case you weren't here at the beginning, my name's Laura Francis. I'm the director of Sea Forward Fund, and I'm your host for today. In a few minutes, we're going to meet our panelists, but first I'd like to share a little bit of background on why Sea Forward is hosting today's event. My ocean journey started in science, education, and policy, and I've made the switch to impact investing in ocean health over the past 9 years. And so I thought I'd share a little bit about how I got here, just to show that there can be so many points of entry into this space. So my interest started in the ocean was sparked when I was 11 years old. That's a picture of me on a boat out to Santa Cruz Island. This eventually, a spark was lit on that trip, and this led me to graduate school eventually to study hydrothermal vents and teach marine biology at both middle and high school. And then an outdoor science camp at Catalina Island, to a career in marine education and policy at NOAA for 27 years. I retired 3 years ago from that, and I just want to take a moment to recognize some of my incredible NOAA colleagues who I know are on this call today. Thanks to their efforts, we have marine protected areas across the US, a deeper understanding of our ocean and climate systems, and essential education that inspires the next generation of ocean stewards. Their work has really laid the groundwork for a healthier and more resilient blue planet. So thank you for your incredible contributions. About 8 years ago, while I still worked at NOAA, I just had the incredible good fortune of a family software company being acquired. And I used this opportunity to create a donor advised fund and start making grants into ocean and climate initiatives. I then started impact investing through the donor advised fund. I joined Tonic, which is a global network of impact investors, to build my learning curve and help bridge the gap between science and education and finance. And then despite a steep learning curve there, I was able to actually offer my marine biology expertise to help guide some investments in ocean health. So it was really good collaboration bringing that background into the finance sector. And since then, Sea Forward has been able to expand our impact through partnerships and community learning. We've joined global conversations in ocean finance at panels and gatherings from San Francisco to Amsterdam. We'll be participating in the UN Ocean Conference and Blue Economy events in France starting next week. So if you're going to be there, please drop a note in the chat and we can try to find a chance to connect in person. I would really enjoy that. I've recently had some just incredible opportunities to dive and snorkel. I was in Dominica and had a chance to be in the water with sperm whales, and just their amazing presence, like it's imprinted on my brain looking into the eye of a sperm whale, and makes me feel even more responsible for protecting and taking care of their habitat. Okay, so before I share a little bit more about Sea Forward, we'd really love to hear from you. If you could answer that poll question that you see on the slide there about how familiar you are with ocean impact investing. please let us know and we'll share the results in just a second. So it looks like we've got a pretty good mix here. Some brand new people and some that know a little, a few 13% active investors, and then some working and studying ocean impact investing. Thanks so much for answering that question. It gives us a sense of who's here today. So I'm really passionate about fostering an accessible and inclusive approach to impact investing in ocean health. And I hope you'll leave today's webinar with an understanding that anyone can get involved, even if it's not your primary focus or day job. Our Sea Forward Ocean Health Fund, it's designed to be collaborative, multi-donor. We like to call it an ever blue endowment for the ocean. And I'm excited to share a little bit about what we've been up to for the past year. And so this donor advised fund is set up as impact philanthropy. So we have dozens of donor investors. They make a tax deductible donation to Impact Assets, which is our umbrella organization, and that gets allocated to our fund. So then we invest these donations in ocean health, and the proceeds go back into the Sea Forward account, which is this ever blue endowment, and they can be recycled and reinvested for future investments or grants. So we have contributions at all levels from $250 up to $1 million in our account, and we aggregate those and make investments. And so our Sea Forward focus areas, we support innovative and effective solutions with a focus on climate resilience, science-based monitoring, regenerative nature-based solutions, sustainable aquaculture, biodiversity, and a circular economy. So it's kind of a broad swath of interests, but since the blue economy is kind of an early emerging field, we wanted to be able to spread investments across these different areas. So we are currently invested in 9 funds that contain about 200 portfolio companies that accelerate innovative projects and solutions in ocean health. Our latest investment in the Circulate Capital Ocean Fund was done in partnership with Heading for Change. That's another donor-advised fund at Impact Assets. This investment will foster a circular economy in Latin America and the Caribbean and limit the amount of plastic going into the ocean. And we really enjoyed the process of working with Heading for Change. They have a really strong focus on climate and gender smart investing. And we found that this collaborative co-investing really enhanced our due diligence process and drove stronger results. And happy to share more about any of the funds we're invested in if folks are interested and want to follow up. We've also provided 4 small grants to the organizations you see here. I want to take a moment to thank the Sea Forward Grants Committee, which helped source and review these grants that we supported in the Coral Triangle region of Indonesia. We work with the Bren School every year at UC Santa Barbara to support a graduate student internship pathways for students that come from a science policy background but want to get involved with and learn about impact investing. We actually had one student who's now gone on to work at Splend Blue Ocean, which is an ocean impact fund based on learning about impact investing with Sea Forward. It can be a little bit challenging to measure the impact and scale of our work, but our incredible impact metrics intern, Danielle Turner, who is with the Bren School and is on this call, has started to tackle this. And she's been compiling our 2024 Insights and Reflections report to capture the impact of the funds we invest in and also the grantees we support. So we'll share a really quick snapshot of that, and we're excited to share more with you next month. That picture is the sperm whale that I was swimming with, and that's me in the background. Thanks to Sean Heinrichs for that photo. And so this slide shows the percentage of our portfolio that each fund represents. And the themes that each of the funds focus on. And you can see the little icons down below. So most of the funds address multiple themes. And just a sneak peek at some of the information that we'll compile from our reflections report. The goal is to really share the reporting that each fund provides us with. And they're all using a common framework from the Thousand Ocean Startups Coalition, Ocean Impact Navigator. And so the idea is that there are common performance indicators that are measured by all the funds, and they each report out on those. This is an example from Catapult Ocean, as they've been one of the first ones to report out. And they've got a broad portfolio supporting waste reduction, reef protection, regenerative seaweed, and more. And we'll aggregate the data that all 9 funds share with us into a report so we can better understand the collective impact of the whole. And we believe real change requires collective action and collaboration, and we collaborate with the organizations listed on the screen. This is just a sampling of them. Sea Forward is part of the 1% for the planet as an environmental partner. And if you know any business partners who might be interested in supporting ocean health, please send them in our direction. We'd be happy to work with them. And so now it is my great pleasure to introduce our panelists, and we're going to go ahead and start with Catherine. So Catherine Jadot is an environmental scientist, blue economy expert, CEO of Elemental Solutions, and author of the soon-to-be released book called How It Doesn't End: Empowering Solutions to Climate Change. And we're lucky to be getting a first look at some of the insights shared in her book. And stay tuned at the end because she's also going to be doing a special giveaway of her book for a few of you. So Catherine, we'd love to hear a little bit about your journey and your focus.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. It's such a joy to be here. I'm Catherine Jadot. I'm a marine biologist by training and now a blue economy strategist working at the intersection of climate resilience and ocean innovation, especially with small island nations. So my story with ocean started very young. And although I grew up in Brussels, away from any coastline, I was always drawn to the sea. And I joined a dive club when I was 8 years old. And every Saturday night, I trained at our local pool. And it quickly became my entire world. For 15 years, every week, I would go train. Every holidays, I would go diving in Egypt, Oman, Jordan, and I even became an instructor when I was 16 for diving with children and leading kids on their very first open ocean dive. And, I think it's that sense of wonder when I was diving with kids that really shaped who I am today. So that passion led me to become a marine biologist. And after finishing my PhD, I started my career in Dubai, working on an artificial reef project. And it was there that I really saw for the first time how devastating, human impact could be. The reef we were trying to protect and restore was already smothered in sediment with massive offshore dredging. So the water were murky, the coral was dying, and the coastline was eroding. And it was really heartbreaking. I remember thinking, how can we so casually destroy what took nature centuries to build? But then I didn't give up. I moved away from academia and moved into field-based work, spending years doing coral restoration project and mangrove restoration project all around the world, and poured my heart into those projects. But too often, when I would return to a site, I would see that the reef were wiped out. Not because the work was flawed, but because of things like upstream sand mining, of coastal development or illegal fishing, So these weren't ecological failures, they were systemic ones. And that's when I realized that if I wanted to make a real difference, I had to work upstream of the problems. So I pivoted and I began supporting governments, helping them develop strategies and roadmap to better their marine ecosystems. I wanted to improve enforcement, integrate climate risk, and create space for long-term planning. But over time, I saw another critical gap. even if governments had the vision of a clean ocean and a healthy ocean, very often they would not have the funding to implement it. That's where I move into blue finance, working with development agency and development bank investors, really to design solutions that align capital with sustainability. And over the past 2 decades, I've supported more than 30 island nations across the Pacific, Caribbean, and Africa. And I've helped build blue economy strategies and design investment plans for marine protected area, coral restoration, and nature-based solutions. I also work with ocean-focused investors and startups, advising on how to channel finance into projects that are regenerative, inclusive, and of course, grounded in science. That means that everything from seaweed biorefinery to blue carbon credits. And I'm especially interested in making those efforts investable at scale. So we stop to reinvent the wheel and start building the infrastructure that we need. And one of the most exciting projects I'm part of right now is with the United Nations. It's called Pro-Carib Plus. And we're helping build a regional coordination mechanism for ocean governance across the wider Caribbean. So it brings together, countries, intergovernmental organizations, and the civil society, really to align on a shared vision for healthy, resilient, and productive ocean. So, it's also to bring more capital into the blue economy for the region. And I think it's one of the most ambitious efforts of its kind because it's really a powerful collaboration of what, of what collaboration can look like at scale. So I don't pretend that that work is easy, right? But I do believe it's absolutely necessary. And I hold on to the belief that we can build a future where healthy oceans support thriving communities. We just need to be more creative, more collaborative, and a bit more courageous. Thank you.
I love that, Catherine. That is like just speaks to my heart. So
Thank you.
So next we're going to introduce Ali Rose. She has a very impressive background working at the intersection of research, finance, and policy to advance innovation in the blue economy. And currently, Ali leads ocean strategy at the Milber Foundation. And she previously focused on connecting investors with regenerative ocean solutions at the CREO Syndicate and See Ahead. So we're going to hear all about that, and go ahead and take it away, Ali.
Great. Thanks so much, Laura. And thanks to everyone who joined today. My story is a bit more circuitous than Catherine's, but it just shows that truly anyone can get involved in this space, and no matter what background you come from, which I think is a powerful statement to this ever-growing sector. I grew up by the ocean, was always fascinated by it on the coast of Maine. I went to college on the coast of Maine as well, but ended up teaching Spanish for about 5 or 6 years after undergrad, and remembered that I was teaching my students more about ocean vocabulary than how to order at a restaurant at the end of the day. So I'm sure there are plenty of students out there with a very specific vocabulary set roaming around, thanks to me. But I, about 4.5, 5 years ago, decided to make a switch in my career after I took a trip to the Amazon and reminded myself why I loved environmental studies so much, and reconnected with the ocean back in Maine. And I decided that I really wanted to explore opportunities in environmental science in the ocean. First looked into policy. I went back to school to get my master's of public policy in climate change and sustainability at Northeastern, and focused in on ocean policy, but then quickly realized that the private capital side was where I wanted to focus, just because of the influence private capital can have over policy and vice versa, but found that was really interesting to study the dynamic between the two. So I started educating myself as much as possible, listening to podcasts, reading scientific journals, talking to people smarter than I, and just wanted to absorb everything that I could about the ocean. Um, and I was definitely a real nerd for about a full year of just trying to absorb as much as I could, both on the finance side as well as the environmental science side. I ended up working at See Ahead, which is a blue tech innovation startup based in Boston, which is where I'm based. Cambridge actually is where it's based, but I'm based in Boston. And I was working with an angel investment group to help identify opportunities that could be of interest in the blue economy. And I learned so much there and was able to really hone in my interest areas within the blue economy and where I saw the most growth opportunities. After See Ahead, I moved on to CREO Syndicate, which is a membership community of ultra high net worth family offices that are all working to help deploy capital into climate solutions. And I led the ocean sector there, which meant I was putting out research about market trends. I was helping to connect investors to opportunities that spoke to their investment interests, preferences, risk profile preferences. And I was helping to drive forward educational content in programming. So those teaching skills really did come in handy, actually, which just goes to show you have transferable skills from your prior positions as well. So after CREO, I was there for about 2.5 years, and I just recently transitioned to a single family office foundation, the Milbor Foundation, which is a foundation solely focused on oceans and catalyzing capital into ocean positive solutions. I'm helping to craft the strategy of the Milbor Foundation, and we're really focusing on the levers that we can pull to make an outsized impact on the industry as a whole, and really analyzing broad swaths of industries, looking at marine carbon dioxide removal, looking at seaweed, and seeing where the key levers are that we can pull to make sure that we're able to help accelerate funding as well as accelerate change. So we have a lot of work to do, but we love partnering with other funds and accelerators and the ecosystem, because that's really where our strength comes from. I love the ocean sector has a great saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I really believe that. And I'm just so excited to be here with my fellow panelists and excited to share with all of you about my journey.
Thanks so much, Allie. And if you haven't had a chance to dive into some of Allie's deep research, she has made her reports are incredible. They're very detail oriented, and I've learned so much for them. And what an incredible opportunity you have now to really deploy capital in the ocean to where it's needed most. So super excited to have you on board and helping to take care of the ocean. And our next speaker is Michelle Lee. We're so lucky to have Michelle with us today. She's a globally recognized climate champion dedicated to advancing carbon literacy and sustainability with an emerging focus on ocean impact. Yay! She began her career in Silicon Valley before founding Clever Carbon and Women in Climate. And Michelle, can you go ahead and take it away and introduce your work?
Yeah, so great to be here with everyone. Just a quick shout out to the Sea Forward team doing tireless work, bringing awareness and uplifting the voices of women as well. Thank you for all that you're doing. And it's great to see a few familiar faces or names in the participants as well. So lovely to see everyone. As Laura mentioned, I don't come from a traditional ocean background. I actually worked in tech for many years, but that actually laid a strong foundation for my love of nature and of giving back. When I worked at Salesforce, all employees had volunteer time off, like 5 days that we could essentially, not be at work and go volunteer for a cause of our choice. And at DocuSign, I worked partly in the London office as well, and our team did ocean beach cleanups as well, and that really laid that foundation for me. Today, I work on a couple of projects, but if we go to the next slide, I want to kind of share my personal journey when it comes to the ocean because, believe it or not, it actually started with a Netflix reality TV show. I know that's not typically how things start, not a reality show, like maybe a documentary, but long story short, I watched this Netflix show, reality show, and on the show was an individual who really loved the ocean and, the power of LinkedIn. I somehow ended up just connecting with this person, like not really, I wasn't in the ocean space at that time. I was newly working on sort of Clever Carbon full time. But I saw like on their profile that they like talking about carbon. And obviously I was doing some work in carbon literacy. So literally, tag that person in a bunch of LinkedIn posts, connected with them on LinkedIn, and got invited for coffee at their office. And that's really how everything took off. This individual educated me on the power of the ocean, the fact that it's 70% of our planet, provides immense scale for some of the climate solutions that we needed, but at the same time requires repair and a lot of efforts from just human beings to do that repair work. And through this individual, I was then introduced to Christina Mittermeier, an absolute legend. And imagine, you're new to the ocean space and then you meet Christina Mittermeier a couple months in. I invited her to moderate a panel that I was speaking on at South by Southwest on carbon literacy and the future of consumer brands. She said yes. So we had this incredible legend moderating our panel at South by Southwest. And the following year, I submitted another panel which got accepted on climate repair, ocean health, and carbon removal with folks from Ocean Visions. We had a few experts as well on the panel there, but bringing these topics to the mainstream. And that's really the foundation of my work is like, how do we get more people involved? How do I get my tech colleagues, whether they're in sales, accounting, marketing, to know and to care about these solutions, whether it is about carbon or it's about ocean? Along my journey, I was very fortunate to work with the Prince of Monaco Foundation. I have worked on several of their Ocean Innovators platform events in Dubai, in Monaco, in Singapore, and I'll also be doing some work for some side events at UNOC and BEF as well with the foundation. But through that experience, I was moderating a lot of the panels. And I started learning so much about the blue economy, about decarbonization of the maritime sector, aquaculture, marine CDR. And now I consider myself, although I'm not in it day in, day out, but I'm definitely a supporter and an advocator of the blue economy. I also leveraged one of my other platforms through Women in Climate, a global women's professional network. No climate experience needed, but last year we did a virtual webinar for World Ocean Day. We had Daniela Fernandez, we had Aubrey Paris, we had Ali as well come speak, and we featured over 20 women in an hour and a half covering all sorts of topics from the Arctic to deep sea mining. And I've since continued the work at South by Southwest this year. We brought the topic of the Arctic to a mainstream audience, which is powerful in many ways. And through the work at Clever Carbon, I also find different opportunities to educate people about the ocean in a way that is engaging, very colorful, just knowledge and facts. You can see there, Shannon on my team has done a couple of short reels on ocean acidity. We highlighted the BBNJ, taught people about SIDS. And I also do an ocean workshop. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I also serve as an advisor to the Blue Standard, which is an initiative by by Oceanic Global. And for me, there's just a strong connection to the Blue Standard because it helps businesses become more ocean friendly. And I know the world of business, I know the world of tech companies and all the different customers that they serve. So um, I'll leave it at that, or maybe I'll just fit in one more thing. But with the Carbon Newbie Summit, it's an event that I host during SF Climate Week and New York Climate Week. We always try to include an ocean component. So this year, we had a short talk on deep sea mining as well as coral reefs during SF Climate Week. And again, to a very, mostly focused on climate tech versus ocean when it comes to climate solutions. So I'll leave it there for now.
Thanks so much, Michelle. And we're delighted that you are joining our ocean community. You've brought so much to the climate community, and you're just are a really amazing voice to have at the table here. So now that you've met our panelists, we would love to have you meet each other. And so we're going to set you up into some breakout rooms and let you network with each other. And then we'll come back and we can ask the panelists some more questions about their work. Welcome back, everyone. It was really awesome to meet some new people. I was in a room with two people I did not know, and one of them, it was actually a Women in Ocean Food project based in La Paz with Mariana, and that's actually a project that Sea Forward this year just supported in 2025. So that was very cool to meet her in person. And we are going to go ahead and move into our question and answer for the panelists. So I've got some questions first, and then we will open it up to our participants to ask questions. And if something comes up for you while we're engaged in this Q&A and you want to type it into the chat, please go ahead and we'll make sure to capture it, and we'll try to get to as many questions of yours as we can. So my first question is for Catherine, and I'm so inspired by your work. And I first met Catherine just through LinkedIn. I was sort of just following all of her posts because if you're not connected with her on LinkedIn, you should be. She has an amazing way of just breaking down the components of what it means to invest in a blue economy and a healthy ocean in just a super tangible and accessible way. And so just to start, can you describe to our participants here, like, what are the elements of a blue economy? What does that mean when we talk about blue economy?
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Very kind words. It means a lot to me. So yeah, the blue economy. First, I need to acknowledge that the term blue economy can be confusing sometimes. Why? Because you still have several definitions out there. And some definitions really focus purely on economic activities in the ocean space, which could technically include things like, offshore oil and gas, deep sea mining, but that's not the definition I go by. And the one I use, and I think many in the sustainable development world share, is that the blue economy is a sustainable ocean economy. That means that you're going to create value and jobs without degrading the marine ecosystem that we all depend on. So yes, it includes traditional sectors like you have fisheries, shipping, and tourism, but you also have newer sectors like offshore renewables, marine biotech, sustainable aquaculture, and of course, blue carbon. So it's not the sector that makes it blue, it's the values behind it. So a real blue economy is built on three pillars. It's environmentally sustainable, socially inclusive, and economically viable. So in other words, it protects ecosystems, include local communities in decision making and benefit sharing. That's important. And also generates long-term value rather than quick extractive wins. So that means it's science-based policies, strong governance, local participation, and financing mechanisms that prioritize long-term health over short-term profit. And when those three elements come together, the blue economies become one of the most powerful ways that we have that we can link ocean protection with human well-being, especially for coastal nations and small islands that depend so heavily on marine resources. So I think it's just not a vision, it's a necessity to have a sustainable blue economy.
I love that, and such a holistic and inclusive approach that engages nature and people and finance and economics, and I really appreciate that answer. Thank you so much. I've got a question for Ellie. You've done some deep dives in the different sectors and market trends in the blue economy and written about topics like sustainable aquaculture and how funds can measure their ocean impact and the role of blue carbon in combating climate change, ocean alkalinity enhancement assessment. So based on your deep dives, what do you find are the most investable ocean areas and why? So I just picked an easy question for you.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I'm going to make it even easier and challenge us to think about what we mean as investable. So, which also kind of leads to a question of, how are we measuring success of investing within the ocean? I think that we've been stuck for a while in this this binary mindset of just philanthropy or venture investing with the typical VC timeline of maybe 3 to 6 years, sometimes extending it to 7 years if we're talking about the ocean for venture capital. But we really need to rework our mindset to think about making the ocean akin to biotech funding, increasing the time horizons, the length of time it will take to actually generate returns on investment, and adapting that to a different type of way to think about the type of money that is needed to build up the ocean sector so that it's able to produce those returns, but on a longer time horizon. There's nothing wrong with having it be a longer amount of time to produce returns for investors. And I think that it's even necessary to think that way when we are trying to reconcile resource enhancement with what we've been doing for the last hundreds of years of resource extraction. We have a lot of ground to make up for that. And so we just really need to rework our mindset on what investable means to us and the ocean economy, because the extraction phase is over. Like Catherine said, we really are in the regenerative phase. But out of all of the different areas that I've looked into, it attracts different types of investors for each space. Sustainable aquaculture, you get very tech-based investors that are looking at solutions to fight disease like sea lice, and aquaculture net pens. And in ocean alkalinity enhancement, a lot of people are looking at ocean data to measure the pH and total alkalinity of the surrounding ocean. So I wouldn't say that one of the areas is more investable than others. There are so many certain subsectors within each of the areas that you can dive into. But I think what is most important to highlight is that it's going to take a lot of different types of capital and a lot of different types of investors in this area to help move the sector forward. We've seen a huge growth in it the last 5 to 7 years, and I anticipate seeing even more investors get involved as they understand how important the ocean is to climate change. And that knowledge is just increasing day by day.
Thanks so much, Allie. Yeah, and it's like it starts with grants, right? And then loans, and then recoverable loans, and then blended finance and impact philanthropy, which is where we sit, to venture, to, later stage investment. There, we need all of it. Yeah, and we need all of it kind of in a relatively short time frame as well to make a difference. So Michelle, I've got a question for you. You've got such an impressive career and worked at some really top-notch tech companies in Silicon Valley, and now you've become a global leader and climate champion, and you've made carbon literacy hip and fun and accessible to people, and to more people. And kind of how have you done that, and what strategies are you developing in the ocean space to do something similar?
Thank you for the question, Laura. Um, our philosophy, or my philosophy at Clever Carbon is, can we make it so that it doesn't seem or feel like climate? It's just something that everyone can and should know. And if we brand it in a way where people are familiar with those brands and they like that, they may just engage without even knowing. So, with Clever Carbon, I essentially told our designer, like, what would Urban Outfitters do if they were going to teach people about carbon footprint? And that's how our branding for Clever Carbon was born. And it's a really key asset to reaching people who are not in the climate space yet, and most certainly aren't in the ocean space yet. I think another key pillar is that we don't ever do doom and gloom. Like, we share data, we share facts, and we help people make informed decisions. A good example of that on the carbon literacy side is, a vegetarian meal is 600 grams of CO2 emissions, a serving of chicken is 1,300, a serving of beef is 7,700. So I don't even have to say anything. People, when they actually realize what the scale is between the different options that they have, they will make, hopefully, they will make different decisions. But we never want to say, oh, this is bad, you shouldn't do this, or this is good, you do this. Here's the data, and you make the right decision for yourself. And one of the most effective tools that I found to scaling the knowledge is through a corporate workshop. And I know this through my time both at Salesforce and DocuSign. Companies have budgets through their HR teams that are used to engage employees. And so the first thing that I did when I decided that I was going to try Clever Carbon full time and try to, put a roof over my head, was I developed a corporate workshop teaching employees about carbon footprint in a way that is really fun, really engaging. The time goes by. We play a game, we go through a life cycle analysis. I talk about CO2 concentration. What does it mean if we surpass 450 parts per million? Why does that matter? How do we get under 350 parts per million or even below? And I've had the opportunity to, call clients MasterCard, the National Basketball Association, Estee Lauder. And some of the work that we're doing in the ocean space is that I've now created an ocean workshop. And the workshop in the ocean side covers knowledge like, our ocean is stratified. We have surface water and deep water. There's a mixing of nutrients and oxygen. When our oceans are warm, our oceans are more stable. That's not good. What do phytoplankton do? Why are whales important? And so I'm using the tools and the knowledge that I'm familiar with and engaging corporates. And, I want to tie it back to the blue economy because that's, a big part of why we're here today. But there are big corporations, for example, there's a biomaterials startup called Tomtex based in Brooklyn, and they are making a vegan leather that is a high-end vegan leather. And they are working with some of the mainstream luxury brands out of Paris. And, inadvertently, these companies are now part of the blue economy. There's another startup called Pentatonic. They bring circularity back into by, incentivizing consumers to, bring back plastic. So Lego, other brands are their clients, and MasterCard is a partner. So these are small startups, but with these big corporations and with more knowledge and more employee engagement, I think we can really accelerate ocean repair and the blue economy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you're making that bridge with the corporations and then linking in what's happening in the blue economy. And when I first met Michelle, I had an email from her and it was like I was challenged to calculate my own carbon footprint before we met. And so I did that and realized like my biggest thing is flying. That's I think a challenge for a lot of us that, yeah, it really adds to our carbon footprint. We're gonna go back a little bit to finance and Catherine, I was wondering if you could share some examples of some innovative finance models you've seen, and how do we really scale the blue economy to a level that we need to have it at for a healthy and thriving ocean? Another easy question.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Laura. This is such an important question, because I know that if we want to protect the ocean at scale, we need to fund solutions at scale. And right now, the financing gap is huge. So one of the innovative finance tools that have been gaining traction lately is blue bonds, right? So the basic idea is that a government or a development bank raises money through a bond like they would do for a highway or a hospital, right? But the funds are then specifically used for marine conservation or sustainable ocean development. So in the Seychelles, for example, they combine this with a debt restructuring. So part of the external debt, part of the national debt was bought at a discount. And in exchange, they committed to protecting a large portion of their waters. So you're linking financial relief with concrete environmental goals. And I know that Tatia from the Blue Bond Accelerator is in the audience. So if you have any questions about Blue Bond, make sure to direct them to her. She will be the best person to ask her to answer those questions. And another growing tool that we've seen, and I'm sure that everybody has heard about, is blue carbon credits, right? So coastal ecosystem like mangroves, seagrass, and salt marshes store a vast amount of carbon. And when those ecosystems are protected or restored, the carbon they absorb can be measured and then sold as credits on the voluntary carbon markets. And that creates a revenue stream that can support long-term conservation, especially when projects are designed to benefit local communities and uphold environmental integrity. But the thing is that if we want these tools to truly scale, we need more than capital, because it means building pipeline of investable projects that are technically sound, socially inclusive, and ready to absorb funding, which is not the case of every project, right? And it means also simplifying permitting processes, strengthening governance, and investing in local capacity so project can be delivered reliably. And critically, I think we need to raise awareness. That's what we're doing today, on both sides of the equation. I mean, that we need to raise awareness on the entrepreneur side, on the startups, and the project developers who are building these solutions, but also on the investor side, who are still learning what high quality blue economy investment actually look like. And that alignment is what usually unlocks scale. So it's not just more money, but smarter money flowing to where it can do the most good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that a lot of people aren't aware of all of the caveats there. And a question for Ali. what are some emerging tools that are being used to measure impact in the ocean space? And what are some gaps that you're aware of that should be filled?
Yeah, this is a great question because a lot of people measure the success of their investments not only on the return on capital, but return on impact. And to be able to measure, you need to have metrics to measure with. So it seems like a very simple idea, but when you are trying to think about what can be measured in the ocean and what technological capabilities we have in ocean observation and measurement, it gets a little bit tricky. And I was actually part of the founding group of the Ocean Impact Navigator, which is a tool that is being used by ocean funds as well as ocean investors to help measure the impact of their investments. We created it from 2020 to 2021, introduced it at the Ocean Conference in Lisbon, and we have been able to see it gain hold in the impact measurement space like never before. It is now starting to be adopted by people that are ocean adjacent, I like to say, and interested in investing in oceans, but not truly a solely ocean focused investor. But it has gained a lot of traction as kind of the unifying metric system to help measure what your investments are doing for the health of the ocean. I will say that there are still gaps that remain with regards to measuring and monitoring and reporting on, for example, blue bonds. I think that we have a lot of different tools out there. But something like the Ocean Impact Navigator, which is a centralized, standardized tool for direct startups to measure impact, there could be something that transfers across all different governments on how to actually measure the impact of what your blue bond is doing for the ocean. So more standardization, less bespoke. We're not going to get it perfect ever, but perfect can be the enemy of very good. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, we love the Ocean Impact Navigator. We're a member of the Thousand Ocean Startups Coalition, and all of the funds we're in are using that tool to measure their impact. And it's just so important to have a common framework. Otherwise, we're speaking different languages, and so it's really, really helpful. I want to make sure we get to our audience Q&A, but before that, Catherine has a special opportunity to give away 5 copies of her upcoming book, which I'm really looking forward to reading. It's called How It Doesn't End, and the book shines a hopeful light on the climate crisis and offers tangible actions and a sense of empowerment to counteract eco-anxiety and burnout. That's definitely something I have been experiencing, so it seems like that would help me and maybe some of the others on this call. So to enter the giveaway, if you open the Google form in the link on the slide and type in your name, email, and the name of a woman or organization that's doing great work in the impact space, we will announce a giveaway at the end of the call here. So stick around for that. And it's been really wonderful to chat with all of our speakers. And let's see, if we're getting some answers in there, maybe we can share some of the results looking at powerful women and incredible work in the ocean space. And in just a second, we're going to go to the general Q&A. And if you haven't already, please feel free to enter your questions into the chat. And let's see, it's going to take me a moment here to scroll through these questions. So just 1 second.
Yeah, Laura, the responses aren't showing up the way that we did in our test, so we're not seeing the actual responses here. So we
Okay.
may just hear about those a little bit later.
Okay, great. Great. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and ask Allie this question right now, and I'll scroll through the others just because I know you didn't come from a marine science background, and you kind of entered the space, and now you have this amazing job of being able to deploy resources into the ocean space. So we have some early career scientists and educators and people who may not, have a tight connection to the ocean impact investing world yet. Do you have any advice for them?
Yes, I was them. If that's the case. I think there are some very underestimated tools, both that you can develop and work on. I think that one of the most underestimated skills, because I do think it is a skill that you should work on, is being curious. It sounds so silly and so basic, but exploring with curiosity and truly adopting a growth mindset as you get into this space is so important. I look at some of the articles I wrote in the first few years of starting out in oceans, and I cringe now because I've learned so much since then. But that's a good example of growth. You want to be able to look back at your work and say, oh, I didn't know as much as I know now. And we are, as a society, just so trained to make everything perfect at the first time we do it. That is not how we learn. That is not how you progress in a career. You are going to make mistakes. My blue carbon article, I can look back there and I'm like, ooh, there are some things that I really misstated there. And I'm looking back at it as the first article that I wrote in this space and looking at the work that I've been doing now with Creo, and there's a huge knowledge learning gap there that happened that I had no idea was going to happen. So just giving yourself grace as well as exercising curiosity, because we're all human. We need to be able to learn. This is how you get better at something. So that would be my advice.
That's so important. Yeah, and we're all new at this at some point. And I wanted to also ask Michelle, you described how you're working with corporations to help raise awareness about actions people can take to support ocean health. Like, what are those specific actions, and how do we engage, masses of people that don't even know that their life is connected to the ocean into taking action and doing something hopeful? Yeah.
I mean, action can be, as simple as reducing plastic in your daily lives. I mean, I say it's simple. The concept is simple, but actually doing it is a little bit difficult. To, at your workplace, wherever that is, if you're working at a tech company or a manufacturing company, raising awareness around how your organization touches the ocean. I think for people, like, most companies don't know. And if we can start at the top and produce things that are more friendly for the ocean, we can drive scale in a quicker way rather than everyone, trying to go to a refill shop. Like, can we have some of the really big brands come up with solutions and implement these solutions and, remove a little bit of convenience from our daily lives, if that means we're improving, the health for the ocean. But there's like so many different ways to do it, but it really begins with the education, because when people don't understand why plastic is detrimental, why we need the ocean, it's really hard for them to act. And most people don't a lot of people don't live by the ocean, so what, they don't see, so they feel like it doesn't impact them. And then even for companies, like if I'm a tech company, how does the ocean impact me? Like I've had clients that really enjoy the workshop and they're like, "Oh, do you have another workshop with the carbon footprint one?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I have the ocean one." And they're like, "Oh, well, we're a tech company. We don't really have anything to do with the ocean." But actually, every business, whether you think you do or whether you want to take action or not, is where we need to kind of flip those mindsets, and the education is just really key. And yesterday, I just went to do some filming, went out on the streets of Toronto, and the film's not out yet, so everyone in here signed an NDA. Doesn't matter. We don't have that big of a reach. But I stopped people on the street and I asked them, hey, like, they agreed to play Ocean Trivia with me, being recorded. And I asked them, did you know that it's World Ocean Day on June 8th? Most people don't know that. Then I asked them, what percent of our planet is land versus ocean? Most people actually, knew that it was around 7% ocean. I was surprised. Someone thought it was 95% ocean. I was like, oh, okay. Then I asked them about, oxygen, what percent of the Earth's oxygen is produced by the ocean? Most people got that right, like around 50 to 70%. But then name one marine organism that produces oxygen. That was a little challenging. And then name one organism that fertilizes phytoplankton, cycles carbon, and acts as a home and food for other marine organisms when they die. And I think like two people got that it was a whale. One person was like corals, and but that's where it begins. And people don't know the value of a whale. They just think it's a beautiful, majestic creature, but there's so much value that these organisms actually bring. So helping people realize that.
That's great. I love those examples. Um, we have so many questions here, and we don't have that much time to get through all of them because we do have one more breakout. But a question that just came in for Catherine is, how close are we to having reliable biodiversity credits for use in restoring marine environments, and how far behind are carbon credits?
Thanks. Yeah, that's an excellent question. And to be honest, I think we're still in early days when it comes to having reliable biodiversity credits for, restoring marine environments. So the interest is definitely growing, but the market is still catching up. So compared to carbon credits, biodiversity credits are quite a bit behind, especially when it comes to having clear frameworks, standards, and KPIs. With carbon, we've got decades of protocols and experience and relatively straightforward metric, like a ton of CO2. That's easy. But for biodiversity, it's more complex. It's not just counting species or coral cover. It's also about ecosystem function, resilience, and local context. That's what makes it harder to standardize. That being said, there are some very interesting and promising pilots underway. And a lot of work is actually being done right now to bring credibility and rigor to the space. But if you're looking at biodiversity credits as a serious tool for marine restoration, especially for attracting private finance, we're probably a few years away from having the level of reliability and scale that carbon markets currently offer.
We definitely have a ways to go, but we're on the path for sure. So we have a lot of great questions, and if we didn't get to your question live, we'll make sure that we answer it in the resources email that you'll receive next week. And I have one, since this whole webinar was focused on hope for our blue planet. It's really important to me to ask each of you, what inspires hope and action for you personally? So let's go ahead and start with Ali on this one.
I guess the belief that I can help make a difference in this. I think that you really do need to believe that singular people can really help move the needle on certain solutions, and that they can create a difference. So just having that belief, as well as understanding that the ocean is our biggest climate ally, really inspires me to drive action towards our ocean.
How about you, Michelle?
For me, it would be the action that I'm seeing myself, whether it's in this community or people who are newly inspired by the ocean. When they know and they learn, they're eager to spread the knowledge. And, just last week, on all my social media feeds, David Attenborough's new documentary just blew up. And I think, like, yeah, it's another documentary, but I really think that he has this platform. He has the celebrities behind, he has the foundations behind to really punch through and get the message across. So I think there's a lot of hope for the ocean.
Great. And Catherine.
Yes, what inspires me is seeing and knowing that change is possible. Especially when local communities, governments, and innovators work together. I've spent time in places where degraded reef have come back to life, where you had the kids, the youth leading marine conservation efforts. I can see, I've been in this field for long enough that I can see that it is changing. We do see a difference. We do see an increased awareness. And I know that the ocean is incredibly resilient if we give it a chance. And I really act because I know that the window for making a difference is still open, but it's closing fast.
Yeah, and I think I'll share my my story of hope. I was just earlier this month diving in Missoul Marine Reserve in Raja Ampat, and what gives me hope is basically two dive guides in 2005 were there and saw that the area was a shark finning camp. And they went with like no experience in setting up a marine conservation eco resort. They just started meeting the people. Merritt and Andrew worked with the local community and built this incredible eco resort that employs local people, and they've turned 300 acres of ocean into a marine reserve that had a 250% increase in biomass over the first 6 years. It's just an incredible place and an incredible story of just two people who really wanted to make a difference, and they're continuing on engaging local communities and really making a great case study for sustainable tourism. And we would love to hear from all of you about your stories of hope. We're going to circulate a Google form that you can fill out. And even if you just have a word or two to describe what your story of hope is, and something that will, in your email, we can follow up with you, and we can circulate that with you again in our resource kit next week when we share the recording of the webinar. And so there was a question in the chat about how do we unlock the 250, I think it was, billion in donor advised funds to get that funding to move toward the ocean or environment or some of these causes. And I am a big proponent of unlocking DAF capital in any way that we can and get it working and moving for good. And one example of how we can do that, it's pretty hot off the press. We just started working with Catacap, which is a platform where really anyone can be an impact investor. You can donate as little as $250 and you get your own little Catacap donor account. And then that can be invested in different causes like Global Fund for Coral Reefs. We're just putting our whole Sea Forward portfolio up there. And the really cool thing about this is that you actually get to monitor and track your investment returns over time, and it comes back to your account. So Sea Forward has been doing this for our larger donors, but we just didn't have the capacity to do it for smaller donors. And so now, if you get a return on your investment, for example, on this Global Fund for Coral Reefs one, you would get that over time, and you can reinvest it in another investment fund, or you can grant it out to your favorite nonprofit. And so it's just a way for many, many more people to kind of crowdsource investments together and learn about impact investing. And so there's information about the CATACAP and Global Fund for Coral Reefs and our whole Sea Forward portfolio, and any other cause that you're interested in, environmental or ocean, you can get involved with and get a return in your account and be able to reinvest that. So I really hope that all of you have had a chance to meet a few new people. We can do some breakout rooms at the end for those of you who would still have some time to stay on. We're going to have a quick poll about what you learned today, and if you could share any of your takeaways in the chat. We'd love to stay connected with you, and we've got we'll show everybody's contact information in just a minute, but if you could take a moment to answer this exit poll. Really, this is Sea Forward we really want to create a learning community and engage all of you in the work that we do and the work that these three amazing women are doing as well. So any feedback that you have on future topics or future speakers for webinars, we'd love to hear those. And I'd really, really just want to thank our panelists, Michelle and Catherine and Ali. You women are absolutely incredible. You're doing amazing work, and you are so inspiring to me. I could talk to you for hours and ask you lots of questions about your amazing work. And I really appreciate you joining us today and being part of this webinar. And I think I need to announce our winners for the book before we log off today. So, Chico Scazafava. Chico introduced me to Michelle, and she's with Ocean Conservancy, and congratulations. Emily Aredia, Gretchen Grieb, Haley McVeigh, Caroline Verna, and Mariana Flores Vargas, who's in my breakout room. Congratulations. And Catherine is going to contact you by email and let you know, or find out your mailing address for the book. So that's very exciting. I'm hoping I can get one at some point too. You'll have to let us know where we can buy it.
I'll send you a copy. And I also wanted to say that you can download the first chapter for free on the website that has the same name of the book, How It Doesn't End.
Oh, fantastic.
If you want to read the first chapter.
That's great. So please stay in touch with us. And we all have our LinkedIn pages up there. Get involved with Sea Forward. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can contribute through CATACAP and get your returns back into your own donor advised fund. And yeah, please stay in touch. We're really happy that you all joined us today. I wish I could take a few minutes to engage and meet all of you. And we can stay around for a few minutes if there are people who want to go back into breakout groups. But we really, really enjoyed having you all participate today. So thank you so much. And we'll send out the recording and all of the resources next week.